No problems here, Gov. Of course there's not. Stay tuned and all will be revealed. This Class 350 was in the doghouse. It was derailing. Can you believe it? And this CMEX 66 had been sent to the naughty corner after derailing on points. And what do I say about this DB Schenker 66? Well, it had been grounded after having broken gears and motor spin. But look at them now, this Class 66 clearing this point as if it didn't even exist. You can see the 350 literally just thundering through Piccadilly Station just there. All I had to do is just adjust the couplings. Just before we move on then, I'd just like to update you on a couple of trains and locos. So you can see the CMEX 66, which was my £40 bargain. Yes, £40. In fairness, on the majority of this layout, it did run absolutely fantastic until we got to that point just there. And on this track, that point just there, where it felt like the front wheels were lifting ever so slightly. So to hold down the bogies on this occasion, they don't clip in like previous Dapples have. There is a screw on the top. If you take the body off, I'm not going to do it, but there's a screw which screws straight into the top of the bogie. So by undoing that screw, you can actually put a little bit more tilt and sway into the bogie. However, what I found was the bogie wasn't allowed to tilt like that. So the front wheels were always riding up. And looking inside there was a little bit of detailing on the bogie, which was preventing it from bringing those wheels down. So unlike that one, there is no detail on that one, where there is detail on that one. So what have I done? I've filed it off. You may remember this 66 in the previous video, and that was because I was going to use it as a temporary replacement for the CMEX, which was derailing at that moment in time. That's all fixed now, as you've probably seen. However, when I put this on the track, all I got was the motor whirring as if the gears had been stripped. But that's exactly what I put a picture on the screen now so you can see exactly where, but this was the offending bogie. So it meant getting onto the Bachmann Spares website and ordering a new one. And as you can see, it's absolutely perfect now. Let's move on. Right, welcome back. Now, as you can see, I've got one of my Class 150s in front of me. Now, I have 3 of these. Now, my plan is to join the 2 151s together to make a 4-car unit with one sound decoder, and the other one will have its own sound decoder. Now, you probably will have seen, or you will see at some point in this video, the 150 running, the 152 running with its sound decoder, but the only problem is it doesn't have a stay alive. So I've just spoken to U-Choose and they do have a stay alive, which I can actually solder straight to the board, which I believe will also apply to the decoder I showed you the other day, is that one. So first job is to take the body off. They come off quite easily, just slip your fingernails under the body and you can prise them off relatively simply. So once you're inside, you need to release the black motor unit there. So you have to undo those 2 screws at the bottom end of the PCB. They transfer power from the chassis up to the PCB. And then once that's out, you need to unclip the bogie, and then the motor unit will just unclip from the clips down the side of the body. Right, so as you can see now, I've got the motor unit out like that. So there's your motor, there's your worm drive, and there's, well, you can see the motor pickups inside there, can't you? And then there's the bogie, and as that clips into there through the chassis, obviously it picks up the power, or takes the power through those 2 brass strips either side there. Okay, and then the power comes out through the 2 halves of the chassis up through to this point, and then that's transferred to the board via 2 screws just there. Okay, so what I'm probably going to do is I've got to obviously modify the end of that to make it look like that. Moving on then, so we've got this piece here which I've 3D printed to go in there, and that snaps in there very nicely, creates a nice flush finish across the bottom. So with a tiny bit of glue on the sides there, that should be absolutely fine. And then with a 3D printed bogie, kind of like that, and the other bogie just there, or even another 3D printed one, it really doesn't make any difference, because what I've decided, this is going to be the freewheeling train, obviously, so I don't need any lights in this particular carriage. Lights will need to be in this carriage, which they are, and there's a decoder in this, and then I can just have the power at the far end of the train with the sound decoder and the working lights, etc. So the working lights will be at the 2 ends, not in the 2 vehicles in the middle. Right, next up, I've got a bit of a update on the stay alive situation. So I just want to thank everybody who commented on that. It was very helpful. And one chap did suggest I go back to YouTube's, and they are my kind of go-to anyway. They do help me out an awful lot. So what they've suggested was to get one of these, and this I can attach to this particular sound decoder, and that's one of the ones out of the class 150s in the N gauge. So I do need to solder this to this board, and then the board gets soldered to the decoder, and I'll tell you about that in a second. But they are very similar to the AE ones. In other words, you've got this separate board and then 2 decoders. You can see that they are very, very similar in the way that they are put together. Now, I've got a diagram at the back here of that particular decoder, so hopefully you can see it. And it does say that the ground goes to the top one, which is obviously that top one just there, and then the positive is the second one down. So there's black to the top and blue to the second one down. So hopefully that should work. I'll get back to you shortly. Well, that's the first one done. I tell you what, for the reasons I outlined in the last video with regard to working with capacitors and all the rest of it, but the diagram is quite clear. And looking on the YouTube's website with regard to this decoder and where to put the negative and the positive, I think that's turned out okay, you know. So I've put it on the decoder tester and it works. Now, as I said before, I've had to replace the speaker because it had blown. Well, this is where we started the fun and games, because the decoder developed a fault and it was shorting out the motor in one particular direction and then racing on. And it was a real job to adjust the CVs to get it to stop doing that. I've got a feeling it was caused by the new speaker. was just about to run some trains and they started derailing. You can probably just about see I've got a buckle, and it runs all the way from here right the way through to about here. So I'm going to have to take this connection off and that connection off, because I'm going to have to cut it about here and at least here. So I completely get rid of the buckle. You can see it's not even in the chairs there, is it? Okay, well, there it is. It did take a bit longer than I anticipated, but we've had roadworks outside with scraping of the road, so you can imagine the noise. So I couldn't be doing the video in part anyway, not whilst that's going on. Now, I have put a little bit of sand underneath it because I'll be honest, the track bed between there and there isn't the flattest. I did try and flatten it off a little bit, but this rail is sitting slightly high, that rail is sitting slightly high, so a little bit of sand underneath it's not going to do it any harm. And once I've done the running session on the top, I'll just put a bit of glue over that and it'll be absolutely fine. So there we go, I'll catch you in a bit. Well, we've passed over it, no problems. Well, as you can see, the 66, the 350, there's a 142 out somewhere, and also this 156 on its way to Liverpool Lime Street. Now, the layout has, well, I wouldn't say suffered, it's had some issues, let's say that, which have been very unexpected. Needless to say, that buckled piece of track down there. There have been endless pieces of debris all over the track, and especially in that area there. That's why the tunnel is down there and not on there, because every time this cement train went through, it derailed. Now, the 66 has also had its issues along there. As you saw, I've had the brand new bogie fitted, and you wouldn't believe it, a piece of debris got caught in the brand new bogie and it jammed. And I'm thinking, oh no, here we go again. I'm going to have to buy yet another new bogie. Gratefully, I managed to work it out. And again, it was a piece of scenery which had dropped down from somewhere. Now, do bear in mind, these lift out sections, i.e. those down there, are covered in scenery. And it's not always tightly stuck down, because I like to sort of have loose bits in there, or flappy bits if you like, to sort of pat it over to make sure there's no gaps. But, you know, that comes with a price, doesn't it? But anyway, what have I achieved this week? Well, I have finally managed to get this 66 going. As you can see, it hasn't run too badly since the last 5 or 6 times around the layout. And the driver's obviously in a little bit of a hurry, because I think he's just been told he's having roast potatoes for dinner. The 350 hasn't put a foot wrong since I've repaired it. I can't argue with that, obviously, except barring the buckled piece of track. 142, I haven't done anything to this, nothing at all. I literally just put it on the track and it run. So that's absolutely perfect. And the 156, well, the couplings had come off, so it's a case of gluing them back on and making it run properly. And as you can see, it is doing. I did fit the Stay Alive to that, so time will tell how well that performs. But I thought it might be quite nice to have the 4-car 150 and run it to Glossop. What do you reckon? It is coming, I promise. There it is. So let's see if we can follow it, shall we? I'll speed it up a little bit once we can get into, oops, excuse my fingers there. Trying to keep it in shot and make it go a bit faster. Now, these are called sprinter trains, but even so, I wouldn't expect it to be going at 1,000,000 miles an hour. So hopefully it'll make it up the track. Well, of course, that bit there is going to cause a problem, isn't it? So I think the best way to do is to move the track, which is going to be an enormous job. Oh, are we stuttering over there? Well, hopefully you can see the 150 coming in there, but of course it derailed because of that area's had its own fair share of debris. Of course it has. Now let's bring it into dinting. Now hopefully it will make it. Give you a better shot and stop it there. Oops, I've overshot the platform. Well, that's a good train driver's trick, isn't it? Sorry chaps, you can only get off the last two coaches where there's no corridor connection. Never mind. So let's jump out of the train and will it now go over the bridge? Bearing in mind I am trying to do this, well, effectively one-handed really, because I'm trying to control the train and keep an eye on the camera as well, which is, as I'm sure you know, not very easy. But anyway, I have checked the whether that track going into Glossop is live, and the tester assures me it is, so I'm going in very slowly. I don't want to hit the buffers. Yes, I am going in very slowly, aren't I? And I think we'll stop it just there and hit brake. There we go, a perfect stop. Look at that. So there we go. Although it's had its hiccups over the bridge, the tunnel section in the far side of the layout, we have actually got a train into Glossop. I think I'll leave the video there. Take care of yourself and I'll catch you real soon here on Piccadilly. Bye for now.